For me, documentary filmmaking was not really something that I had pictured myself ever getting into. Getting into it was actually a bit of a process for me. I think that, like most aspiring filmmakers, when I was first starting out, I sort of had this career trajectory in my mind where I would work super hard and hopefully get into some commercials, and then eventually work my way into doing narrative type of filmmaking, so features or TV shows, and that's something that I really had set my sights on. I worked on a bunch of short films in school, doing them for classes in college, and also doing them with some friends. And so I really enjoyed the narrative style of filmmaking and definitely didn't have documentaries really on my radar at all. So I think it's safe to say that the genre found me, and I am super grateful that it did. It really started with a mission trip I went on in 2015. I was working at a church in Fresno, and they asked me if I wanted to go to Lebanon with a small team that was visiting one of their international partners. Now, for me, getting to travel to the other side of the world wasn't really something I was willing to let pass up. At the time, I hadn't left the continent, so being able to shoot at some cool locations and eat some new food sounded exciting. But what I took away from that trip was more than a cool project to add to my reel. It was even more than falling in love with the genre. I made some really awesome friends, and I learned how powerful stories can be. I went in the middle of the Syrian refugee crisis. And now that's actually an issue that's still going on today, but in 2015, the news cycle had just picked it up because the presidential candidates at the time were spreading all sorts of misinformation and were using the crisis for their own political gain. And rather than trying to unite people around spreading aid or trying to find a solution to why tens of millions of people were fleeing violence and war, there was fear and division. So for me, getting to travel there and talk to some missionaries firsthand who were dealing with the issue and were trying to bring solutions to the problems was a really cool experience. And I also got to interview a bunch of refugees and hear firsthand why they were in the situation that they were in and what they had been through. So for me, it was an opportunity to take something that was extremely divisive and polarizing and try to present it in a humanizing way. For me, this challenge is something that's extremely rewarding, and I also think it's something that the world could use a little more of. It's definitely not something that I get right every time. Balancing the tension between filling the audience in on a complex issue without it becoming too political that people tune it out, while also trying to not whitewash the issue and failing to do justice to the people experiencing it, is a tricky process. It's one that requires a lot of listening from the people telling their stories and from some trusted mentors. I think having mentors is something that's super important in any field, but especially with documentary stories, it's super helpful to be able to have some people that you trust, that you can get feedback from, that you can bounce ideas off of, and who can sort of steer you in the right direction when you're feeling stuck. And for me, I'm super grateful for the school that I went to, Fresno Pacific, because I feel like there were a ton of professors and mentors there who really helped lay the foundation for me to be able to juggle some of these complex and tough stories. So I'll give a couple of quick shout outs to Paul Zopa, our video professor, Tim Haydock, and Adam Schrag, and last but not least, the only professor ever to give me a C in my entire life, the only professor or teacher ever to give me a C in my whole educational career, Brian Schultz. I learned a ton from all of you guys, and I can't say enough good things about all of you. I actually graduated with a degree in biblical studies, which is where that C came from. But biblical studies doesn't really have a whole lot to do with filmmaking until you consider the fact that all of the international documentaries that I've worked on are with different ministries and nonprofits that are doing various initiatives around the world. So I think for me, having that Anabaptist perspective on the mission of the church and really valuing peacemaking and reconciliation has really informed the types of stories that I want to be telling and how I want to tell them. One thing that I've definitely learned from documentaries is that stories have the power to help us cut through our echo chambers. And what I mean by that is that almost all of us, if you're on social media, follow the news, talk to like-minded people, we create these sort of vacuums where we can curate our feeds, watch the programs that align with our beliefs, and generally hang out with friends who don't ruffle our feathers. What we're looking for is an affirmation that we're right, an echo back to us. But I believe that when you hear someone tell their story from their own experience, it has the power to cut through all of those preconceived ideas because we have the ability to see them tell their story in their context, and it allows us to empathize with them. It's no longer an abstract statistic or a headline. It's an actual person behind those things, and we can relate because we have the same hopes, dreams, and desires that they do. And when we see another human going through something, it can cause us to pause and cut through some of those echo chambers. All of the stats about how poor a country like Guinea-Bissau or the Congo are can't communicate how much more the people there understand what's really important in life. Family, community, faith, they get it. I've had the privilege of working with some really cool organizations who are doing some awesome work making the world a better place. These organizations have a ton to offer the world, and I wish we could double their funding overnight so they can continue to improve the communities they work in. But if I'm being honest, I feel like I'm the one who's learning and gaining the most from these experiences. I think it's something that really is unique to documentary storytelling, being able to meet people in different locations and hear their stories and hopefully learn something from them. It's something that I am super grateful for and hope to continue to do more of in the future. Thinking about documentaries and why I love doing them has me thinking about a question that I want to leave you with. And it's simply, what type of stories are we going to tell? Whose story needs to be brought into the world? And how can we help share that story? Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, I would love it if you hit the subscribe button below and like this video. It would mean a ton to me, and it's also the best way to help me support this channel. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.